we wanted to start off a little Zen today.
Wasn't that wonderful? We love the Zen. Zen is good. Zen is great. And you guys are filling up already. Hello, hello, hello.
So thank you for joining us, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. As the dogs are very happy, they have their chewies, they're settling in. I hope you all can hear me. Hello, beautiful people. We see Ambi Lee in the house, Mazel Tov. We have Scratch and Chris Marr as well, Speedway Signs Tucson, Cypher, Lucid, Energy's 1111, Skywatcher Stargaze.
Oh, and DG57 and Miss Annie Luhu. And oh, yeah, there's Skywalker. Azaduzamin. Hello, hello.
Hello, Rose War. Good to see you. Yep, Christina Tina MacArthur.
Hi, Miss Christina Tina MacArthur. And then Kim Miller and John and Barb. Arizona Raven. It's wonderful to see everybody come piling in. Hello, hello.
Great to see the family. Elena over in Waynesville. Hope everything is beautiful over there. And we have so many wonderful people in the house. Matt and Jenny's just joining as well. The Recalcitrant one as well. Edgar's here.
And Miss Rose War and everybody.
John T. and Vita as well. So, guys, we're going to talk about, well, Ascension, the Galactic Superwave. Let you guys know about what's definitely a new guide that we are working with. I mean, we've gotten messages from him before, and he's sticking around. So he's definitely picking us to, I think he wants us to kind of continue his work is what Cindy's getting. So good to see you guys. Okay, Skywatcher says this is a no mask allowed territory.
That's a great idea. I like it. Thank you. Thank you.
Vashti, good to see you as always. Up with trees, which we hope to be seeing some soon.
Great.
We're looking forward to that. Emperor Rex in the house as well. Waves and waves of energy.
Yes, I mean the energy is really awesome. Good energy today. It feels like it's like an evolutionary type of energy wave coming through that's giving people new thoughts, new ideas about this world that we live in and what are we supposed to be doing here? That's what it feels like.
Well, if you look at traditional Hinduism, out of which other great philosophies have come, like Buddhism and Jainism and others as well. Basically, the bottom line is we are all source experiencing its own creation. That's the bottom line. And the apparent, divisions, the illusion of division is just that. It's really, truly an illusion. We can view it all as we are all simple cells, single cells living in the body of something bigger. And when we start looking at it from that unity consciousness point of view, everything changes. Then, if people understood this in mass, I think we could walk away from the system. I think we would have no need of, all this stuff that we're seeing going on right now, all the chaos. But, all that has to be washed away. That's part of the cleansing because the world has unfortunately been so made toxic and polluted by the system that we have.
Yeah, they really have. They've gone to great lengths to pollute the system, to detour people, to distract people. And it's up to us to go within, find out who we are, what we're about, what is our mission, and then walk forward with that.
Most definitely. And I see we have so many other regulars in the house. I saw Diana's in the house. We got Queen Star as well. And Chris says it's a beautiful day up in New Brunswick. And hello, Tracy, over in Alabama. Philharmonics, good to see you as well. Every ready go as well. And Jared.
It's really nice. I mean, we've got a really nice crowd. I feel the energy, and it's very positive, very upbeat. And there's Miss Mary Davidson. Hello. And Lisa Post. Hi.
Wonderful to see you too, as always. So the energies are coming in. The energies are strong. And there's Mike Galactic in the house as well. So this is Peter Dunoff. And he's also known as...
Oh, man. I can't remember that 2 minutes back.
Benessa Duono. Benessa Duono.
Duvuno.
The way that she said it was really good.
I did it.
So this is entitled How One Man Saved Bulgaria's Jews. And I've touched on him before. And so in World War II, Bulgaria didn't have a Schindler, if you remember Schindler's List. It had a white-bearded mystic named Peter Dunoff, and an entire nation standing behind him. And together they saved Bulgaria's 48,000 Jews from the Holocaust. And Einstein actually referred to him and said, "The whole world bows down before me, but I bow down before the master Peter Dunoff." And he was a master of more than one thing. He was into philosophical fitness. He was also a big-time musician. He was into esoteric Christianity, which to me, that's the true form of Christianity, because it merges so well with all the other traditions around the world. And, looking to cultivate the Christ within is what we really should be doing. And so he was an amazing man, and he's been showing up in our meditations, and when we were doing QiGong today, I was doing standing, and she saw him overshadowing me. Cindy saw his face over mine.
An overlay. He made himself very clear. It's like he wants his work to be reborn, but he doesn't want to have to go through the rebirth process. That's kind of what I got. But he does want people to understand him, understand his work, and he would like to go to, use us as a medium to do that and kind of give it some rebirth, because times are changing.
Yeah, and this is not the first time that you've seen him overlay me. This is probably like the third, okay. The third time. So it's amazing, too, because I wasn't aware of his prophecy until about, maybe 6 weeks ago. And that's the first time I talked about him, about a month ago. But yet, when I read it, it feels right. And it was actually exactly what Cindy was getting in her channelings.
Yeah, it was a channeling that I did, and one of you guys, hey, says this reminds me exactly of this guy. Go check him out. And it was really close, channeling the information, and that was the start of it.
It was, we do get information from other sources, as we've talked about, what we would call the Galactics, which includes the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. There's, one regular Pleiadian that contacts us on a regular basis, although, with how it taxes the system to be a trance channel, it's been a little bit less as far as the trance channeling, but more messages coming through in downloads. Especially like either during a cat nap, during meditation, or just in the middle of the night, as I've shared with you before. Sometimes I go to bed with Cindy and I wake up and there's a Pleiadian there. Well, a Pleiadian speaking from her mouth.
Yeah. It is. It's just, there's safer ways to channel. I didn't realize that trance channeling would, it can do a number on the heart, but they're finding ways to get through just fine.
Yeah, they have been. And not just, the Galactics, is we've also gotten messages through what we would call the Devas, which are much higher levels of density beings than the Galactics as well. So they're kind of up on another another rung up the consciousness scale. But also people. And, once or twice you had Crowley come in? Twice, Aleister Crowley came in, and I had studied him going back to my 20s. And she didn't know that, but he just popped in a little bit. Cindy's quite a channel. She's very, very unique, I think. But Peter Dunev came through again. And he's more than just somebody that gave a prophecy. Again, he was a musician. And also, it's interesting because he had a whole series of exercises that would help the brain and help with longevity and help with energy flow. And again, he was from Bulgaria, yet they're not too far off from some QiGong. And I think that's what he was tapping into, perhaps without knowing it or having studied any QiGong at all.
What I get from him is he was getting information on the evolution of our brain and how to make our brains work for us and do what they were designed to do. A very brilliant man, and it really feels like this work needs to be revisited so that people can do these things, so we can all work together in a more understanding, harmonious way.
So his prophecy was fascinating on several different lines. It does go along with some other prophecies out there and things that have come later. And again, I think a lot of times we just in general, humans, even people that maybe are not trance channels, we tap into things. Who can doubt that Tesla was channeling? Tesla was channeling high information. And, I do want to talk about scalar waves in another video coming up. And then we're going to look at also some things that I haven't looked into in depth. I guess I've omitted, but, that are part of what I've studied. Like, I've gone deep into Theosophy and Blavatsky and Bailey, Alice Ann Bailey and the like, and deep into several other just amazing minds that we really haven't done videos on, even though we've done, I think, about 2,400 videos now. But what's fascinating here too is that he predicted a coming superwave 39 years before superwave theory was ever proposed. So he saw it coming, and he saw it coming, very close to his deathbed. He gave his prophecy, which is describing the times that we are in. And so I'll read you his prophecy again. And when I first read this with Cindy was like, oh my God, this is what we channeled like 2 weeks earlier. And it's one of those, they're not coincidences, they're synchronicities. When you're on the right path, then the synchronicities come straight in line. It's just like one thing after another, the dominoes go in succession the way they're supposed to go. So his last prophecy is, over time, human consciousness has gone through a very long period of darkness. This phase, which the Hindus call the Kali Yuga, is about to end. Today we find ourselves on the border between two eras, that of the Kali Yuga and that of the new era into which we are entering. And of course, that is very biblical as well, because most definitely we're going through the birth pains of the new age. And that's what the Bible calls it, the birth pains of the new age. Even though fundamentalists are trained to believe that new age is a horrible term. And really all the new age is a collection of old knowledge, that has been there for thousands of years from other traditions. But that's how they get us to be against each other instead of seeing the continuity that lies underneath all traditions. So a gradual improvement is already occurring in human thoughts, feelings, and actions. And it's not, it might be hard to see that with the chaos going on in the world, but look at the changes that are happening within the people that are ascending. it's tremendous. We've been working on so many people on a regular basis, and consciousness is evolving and expanding at an exponential rate right now. So a gradual improvement is already occurring in human thoughts, feelings, and actions, but all will soon be subject to the divine fire, which will purify them and prepare them for the new era. Thus, man will rise to a higher degree of consciousness, indispensable for his entry into new life, the new life that's coming. And this is what's meant by ascension, as these energy waves keep bombarding us, and then eventually the big one will come. And that will kind of set it all right, so to speak. A few decades will pass before this fire comes, which will transform the world by bringing a new morality to it. This immense wave comes from cosmic space and will flood the whole earth. Anyone who tries to oppose it will be taken away and transferred elsewhere. Well, that's an interesting statement. Because we have also gotten from the Galactics, at some point, they're going to take people out.
Yes.
So there literally will be ships that will come and salvage people. If you guys remember the movie Knowing, when the ships came down and took a lot of the children up before the sun's energy came and turned the earth into a crisp marshmallow, they pulled out a remnant and they took them away and placed them on new planets. So most definitely we could look at that as a rapture event. When ships come down and salvage people that are not going to quite be able to get out of this 3D existence and take them away, that's basically a rapture event. And so we have both going on. We have ascension and then also a rapture of sorts as well. And it's interesting that they will be taken away and transferred elsewhere, because other people have gotten this as well. And you did, Cindy.
I did, and these are things that I didn't read. They just came through, and they keep coming through, like things that we need to do in this day and age to prepare ourselves for changes. And I get enough information to put out there so I can give people focus. I don't get details. I mean, like really super fine details, because it's a big deal. They want us to live our lives. They want us to grow. They want us to learn. They want us to mature. That is extremely important, that we go within and understand ourselves, because that's what Source wants to do. It wants to explore the self. And if I come up with a lot of details, that takes that away from people. That's like being robbed, and they take that seriously.
Exactly. So basically what's forecast to happen is that perhaps 3D Earth becomes uninhabitable, and yet there is 5D Earth, which is what happens when the big wave comes and people that are ascending go up into the new consciousness, and the Earth itself is up into that new level of consciousness, and then things are made anew. But the dark ones, the ones that are controlling the show, the Draco as well as the Illuminati, and some of them perhaps will actually, maybe they'll change their minds, have a change of heart. It's possible on an individual basis, that some will decide to change their ways, because they're not going to be able to take the energy waves that are coming. So that's going to basically toast their whole system, and it's just going to be gone. So as we see here, although inhabitants of this planet are not at all at the same degree of evolution, the new wave will be felt by everybody. And this transformation will not only affect the Earth, but also the entire cosmos. So this is huge. This is not just a local event as well. So, of course, the elite probably think, well, we got all our rockets, we got all our spaceships, we have Elon Musk to help us, get out of here, and as well as others. But will they be able to outrace this? I guess it depends on how good their technology is, because it's going to hit the whole solar system. It's going to hit our whole area. The only and best thing man can do now is to turn to the Lord, turn to God, and consciously improving himself, raise his vibratory level in order to find himself in harmony with this powerful wave that will soon submerge him. So this is where Christ consciousness comes in, becoming heart-centered, understanding the unity of all things, and living through that heart center. The fire of which I speak, which accompanies the new conditions offered to our planet, will renew, purify, rebuild everything. The matter will be refined, your hearts will be freed from anxiety, unrest, uncertainty, and they will become luminous. Everything will be improved, elevated, negative thoughts, feelings, and actions will be consumed and destroyed. Your current life is a slavery, a heavy prison. Understand your situation and free yourself from it. I'm telling you, get out of your prison. It's really sad to see so many mistakes, so much suffering, and so much inability to understand where your true happiness lies. Everything around you will soon collapse and disappear. There will be nothing left of this civilization or its perversity. The whole earth will be shaken, and no trace will remain of this misleading culture that keeps men under the yoke of ignorance. Earthquakes are not only mechanical phenomena, they also aim to awaken the minds and the hearts of humans so that they can free themselves from their mistakes and craziness and understand that they are not alone in the universe. Our solar system now crosses a region of the cosmos where a constellation was once destroyed and left its mark, its dust. And I found this fascinating, this part. The crossing of contaminated space is a source of poisoning, not only for the inhabitants of the Earth, but for all the inhabitants of the other planets in our galaxy. Only the suns are not affected by the influence of this hostile environment. This region is called the 13th zone. It's also called the zone of contradictions. Our planet has been trapped there for thousands of years, but we are finally approaching the exit of this space of darkness, and we are about to reach a more spiritual region where more evolved beings lived. So that's fascinating, because then you wonder, well, how did Draco get a hold of us? How did these dark energies get a hold of us in the first place? And it's because we're passing through that area according to his information that he's giving us. So I found that very, very interesting. And so again, we're going to be leaving this dark zone. So almost like we are going to be resurrected ourselves. The earth is now following an upward movement, and everyone will have to strive to harmonize with the currents of ascension. Those who refuse to submit to this orientation will lose the advantage of the good conditions that are now being offered to them to rise. They will remain behind evolution and will have to wait tens of millions of years for a new rising wave to arrive. And so you could view it also as being trapped in that cycle of 3D 4D, just like what Buddha talked about with the endless rebirths and all, where now we're given the opportunity to go above and beyond and not have to do that. So it's a amazing opportunity when you think about it in those terms, living in this time, even though most definitely we're in some of the challengingest times in thousands and thousands of years, maybe even more than that. The Earth, the solar system, the universe, everything moves in a new direction under the impulse of love. Most of you still consider love as a derisory force, but in reality, it's the greatest of all forces. Money and power continue to be revered as if the course of your life depended on it. In the future, everything will be subordinated to love and to everything, and everything will serve it. But it's through suffering and difficulties that man's consciousness will have to awaken. So that's why I look at things, and I'm in agreement with them too, because to me, small steps, small increments, I just don't see it. I really just don't see it when people talk about even things like Nasara and Gesara. Perhaps things like that will come to pass, but it's still not what we're talking about. We're talking about a completely new system, of which, unfortunately, most of the world probably can't even conceive because they're so saturated in this dark system.
They are, and it is a dark system, but it's designed to keep us down for as long as possible. The good news is, through as far as human suffering and difficulties go, the good news is we find out how strong we are through our darkest times. That's where the strength is. And you can almost start looking at things and embracing things, the most scariest things, and start to learn how to embrace them when you go within and start to understand yourself. It's very freeing. It's like taking off chains. It's like freeing your brain from a prison. And truly, we do keep ourselves in our own prison. And these are teachings to help us come out of that and evolve. And it's like taking a deep breath once you figure something out and you have an epiphany. It's just, there's nothing more beautiful to me.
So it's through suffering and difficulties that man's consciousness will have to awaken. The terrible predictions of the prophet Daniel written in the Bible refer to the period that is beginning. There will be floods, hurricanes, gigantic fires, and earthquakes that will sweep everything away. Blood will flow in abundance. There will be revolutions. Terrible explosions will resound in many parts of the earth. Where there is earth, there will come water. Where there is water, there will come earth. That's one of the things that Cindy saw in her channelings as well. Just everything's going to be kind of made anew. Not that every single piece of the planet is going to be under the ocean and all new land is going to rise, but there will be a mix.
Yeah, there's going to be a mix. The wave that I saw coming in is going to knock a bunch of people on their butt.
Yeah. God is love, and yet this is indeed a punishment, a response of nature against the crimes perpetrated by man since the dawn of time against his mother, the earth. And, that's, again, one of the things that's missing from modern Christianity is the divine feminine. And, it's just so sad that it's such an imbalance. But that imbalance has allowed the horrible treatment of the planet and all the life on the planet itself to happen.
Mm-hmm. And really quick, thank you so much, Miss Energy. She says, keep vibes high, be prepared, not scared. Most of us will rebirth through the membrane. Stay vigilant for the triggers trying to bring vibes down. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much for your support, Karen. We appreciate you. And as we see here, we can't get discouraged. We cannot get discouraged. So after these sufferings, those who will be saved, the chosen ones, will experience the golden age, unlimited harmony and beauty. So keep your peace and faith when the time comes for suffering and terror, for it's written that not a hair will fall out of the head of the righteous. Don't get discouraged. Simply continue your personal development work. It's interesting because I forget if we shared. No, we didn't share this with you guys. But like today, again this morning, I woke up at like 4:30. Couldn't go back. I laid there for over an hour just doing mantras in my head and just couldn't go back to sleep. And I was about to get up and I saw a light in the room, and it looked like just like the full moon looks, but it was kind of rectangular. It was like the size of a torso is what it was. And I had seen that in the past, many years ago, just like that. And it just left the room in a flash. And I told Cindy about it and said, what do you think that was?
Well, it sounds silly, but it was the Pleiadians checking in. They do like a shift change and they check up on everything. And they've been checking on you for quite a while.
Yeah, I think so. I've had encounters it kind of coincides with my meditative practice. When I started to really practice meditation and QiGong on a daily basis, that's when all this started. So that was like 30 something years ago. And, this point I want to make about that is that not a hair will fall out of the head of the righteous. We are watched. And those of us that, are on this path, and we need to have that courage to keep pushing forward. We are being protected by many different beings, angelic and some perhaps of even the Galactic Federation and Pleiadian or Arcturian origins.
And as we evolve, we start to understand that there's a lot more than what we see in the 3D around us. There's beings of all kinds, all sorts, on all different levels. And when we're supposed to know something or see something, then we will. They keep it pretty straightforward like that.
So he goes on, you have no idea what a great future awaits you. A new Earth will soon be born. In a few decades, the work will be much less demanding, and everyone will have time to devote spiritual, intellectual, and artistic activities. Because the system keeps us just, with our heads down, just going at the grindstone. We don't have the time, unfortunately, in most cases, to just pursue spiritual, intellectual, and artistic endeavors. And think about how society is going to grow when that's all we are doing, is basically pursuing that for the most part. Maybe tending our gardens a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if we could just, whatever we're doing in that moment, enjoy it and appreciate it and hold a space of gratitude in our heart? We will grow.
So the questions of relationship between men and women will finally be resolved in harmony. Both will have an opportunity to follow their aspirations. Couples' relationships will be based on mutual esteem and respect. Humans will travel through the different planes and cross intergalactic spaces. They will study their functioning and quickly be able to know the divine world, to merge with the head of the universe.
And these are all the coming changes, and these are things that we can keep an eye out for because we're on our way to seeing this.
So, excuse me, guys. This is really, when we look at this, how could we cross intergalactic spaces? Well, we might be thinking, well, that's going to be technological advances, hundreds of years down the road, thousands of years down the road. How about the Merkaba being developed? Because what that developed, we could do that instantaneously. Mm-hmm. And so many of us, it's coming online.
Yeah, it is. Some people I see like a point of light, and other people I see the little triangle coming in. It's, we're all a little bit different, but it appears that it's happening to everybody.
At least the ones that are in our family and the ones that we are working on. So those that are actually doing the spiritual work and that are doing what they have to do to purge the old and make way for the new. So the new era is that of the sixth race. Your predestination is to prepare yourself to welcome it and to live it. The sixth race will be built around the idea of brotherhood. There will no longer be any personal conflicts of interest. Everyone's only aspiration is going to be to comply with the law of love. The sixth race will be that of love. A new continent will be formed for it. It will spring from the Pacific so that the Most High can finally establish his dwelling on this planet. And his dwelling in the heart and soul, in the body of each one of us. So again, it's that Christ consciousness being lived in our lives in an individual basis. And that's beautiful because that's the way it's supposed to be. And when we recognize that source, God, it's within each one of us. Truly recognize it, then it changes things. Tremendously it changes things. How could you, view source, God, pure love in a negative way? And will it make us perhaps cool down and think about, things in a different standpoint instead of having all the conflicts that we've had? I think a lot of the conflicts we've had is because of this negative influence that's been around us the whole time.
It really has. It's like we were hijacked. It's like they knew coming into this when to come in and hijack the human race for their benefit, and they knew and they did, and now it's our turn to break free.
So the founders of this new civilization, I call them brothers of humanity or children of love, they will be unshakable in the good, and they will represent a new type of man. Men will form a family like a great body, and each people will represent an organ of that body. In the new race, love will be manifested in such a perfect way that today's man can only have a very vague idea about it. So that's what's meant by the body of Christ. Again, recognizing that we're all individual cells in something bigger and treating it as such.
In that part where it says love will be manifested in such a perfect way that today's man can only have a very vague idea of it is very true, and that's not because we're bad or anything of this nature. It's just we were taken over. We were used for somebody else's needs, desires, and wants, and they took us and they taught us things that totally work against our grain. So, but this is why the ideas of love are dropping into our minds now, and we're figuring things out now because we're moving into that space.
So the earth remains a breeding ground for struggles, but the dark forces will retreat, and it will be liberated from them. Humans, seeing that there's no other way left, will engage in the path of new life, the path of salvation. And their senseless pride, some will continue to hope until the end, to continue to lead a life on earth that the divine order condemns. But everyone will eventually understand that the direction of the world does not belong to them. A new culture will emerge based on three guiding principles: the elevation of women, the elevation of the humble, the weak, and the protection of human rights. Light, good, and justice will triumph. It's only a matter of time. Religions must be purified. Each contains a particle of the teaching of the masters of light, but obscured by the incessant contribution of human deviations. All believers will have to unite and agree on a principle, that of placing love as the basis of all beliefs, whatever they may be. Love and fraternity, that is a common basis. The earth will soon be swept away by an extraordinarily fast wave of cosmic electricity. Within a few decades, the evil and misguided beings will no longer be able to bear their intensity. Because it's going to make all of us have that dark night of the soul where we have to face everything that's within us and then just let go that which is not serving the light. And for them, again, you can't serve two different masters. They won't be able to do it. And so they will then be absorbed by the cosmic fire, which will consume the evil that possesses them. Then they will repent, for it is written that every flesh will glorify the Lord. The earth will soon be swept away by... this is the same thing we were saying there. The first waves of cosmic electricity. Interesting the way he puts that too. Our mother, the earth, will get rid of men who will not accept a new life. She will reject them like rotten fruit, just like the body gets rid of cancerous cells when given the opportunity to. Or, again, the white blood cells fighting an infection, a virus. Soon they will no longer be able to reincarnate on this planet. Neither will criminal spirits. Only those that possess love in them will remain, because going up to a higher density. There is no more place on earth that is not contaminated with human or animal blood, so it must be purified. And that is why some current continents will be submerged, while others will emerge. Men do not suspect what dangers are threatened by. They continue to pursue futile goals and seek pleasure. On the contrary, those of the sixth race will be aware of the dignity of their role and respect for the freedom of each individual. They will feed exclusively on products from the vegetable world. Their ideas will have the power to circulate as freely as air and light nowadays. The words, "if you are not born again," apply to the sixth race. Read chapter 60 of Isaiah refers to the coming of the sixth race, the race of love. After the tribulations, men will stop sinning and find the way to virtue. The climate of our planet will be moderate everywhere, and sudden variations will no longer exist. And that's interesting too, because some think that it will spin in the opposite direction, and perhaps that tilt, that it varies, but 23.5 degree tilt, wherever we're at right now, will be gone. And so you'll have an evenness of seasons. You'll have an even weather all around. It's very, very curious and interesting and hard for us to believe. Of course, if the earth did stop its spinning, it would be cataclysmic on the surface. And the air will become clean again, as will the waters. The parasites will disappear. Men will remember their past incarnations and will be pleased to see that they are finally released from their former condition. And when Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and this is from the Mahabharata part of the Bhagavad, it's the Bhagavad Gita section of the Mahabharata. He says to him, the difference between me and you is that I can remember every single one of my past incarnations and you don't. So that's part of self-realization and enlightenment. That's part of, having your Kundalini activated, which is a starting point, and then developing the full Merkaba so we can get up and out into different dimensions fully with our consciousness. So this is interesting because, we're going to be so changed. Just as the vine is cleared of parasites and dead leaves, so do the evolved beings prepare men to serve the God of love. They give them good conditions to grow and develop, and to those that want to hear them, they say, do not be afraid. A little more time and everything will be fine. You are on the right track. Let him who wants to enter the new culture study, work consciously, and prepare himself. Thanks to the idea of brotherhood, the earth will become a blessed place, and this will not be long in coming. But before that, great suffering will be sent to awaken consciousnesses. The sins accumulated over thousands of years will have to be redeemed. The fiery wave emanating from above will help to liquidate the karma of the people. The release cannot be further postponed. Humanity must prepare itself for the great inevitable trials that are coming that will bring an end of selfishness. Under the earth, something extraordinary is being prepared. A grandiose and absolutely inconceivable revolution will soon manifest itself in nature. The Lord has decided to straighten the world, and he will do it. Interesting. Straighten the world. Straighten the world, maybe also with the tilt, as well as straighten the system. It's the beginning of an era. A new order will replace the old one, an order in which love will reign on earth. So I'll have all these links for you guys. There's some other commentaries on it. It goes so well with Mother Shipton, where she talks about not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink of rotting bodies, a beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. But the land that rises from the sea will be dry and clean and soft and free of mankind's dirt, and therefore be the source of man's new dynasty. And those that live will ever fear the dragon's tail for many a year. So perhaps the dragon's tail is that cosmic fire we're talking about. But time erases memory. You think it's strange, but it will be. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view to spew out men of like unknown, to mingle with the earth now grown. Cold from its heat, these men can enlighten the minds of future man, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with second sight. There you go. Full Kundalini, pineal glands working, Merkabas activated. A natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew. The dragon's tail is but a sign for mankind's fall and man's decline. And before this prophecy is done, I shall be burned at the stake at one. My body singed and my soul set free. You think I utter blasphemy. You're wrong. These things have come to me. This prophecy will come to be. And so, burned as a witch at the stake because she had the second sight. Now, if we all had the second sight and we all could see these things, read each other's thoughts, they would not be able to get over on us the things they get over on us, so everything would be very apparent. That's why they fluoridate the water. That's why they put fear into us about quote unquote communicating with spirits, which they make you think everything is a demon when in fact the demons are the ones ruling the planet. So it's exactly the opposite of what we've been taught. And this is Paul LaViolette and Galactic Superwaves. So this is an area of science, that is relatively recent. The whole idea of these galactic superwaves, coincidentally, the last one to impact us was around 12 to 16,000 years ago. So it makes you think of the Younger Dryas event again.
Yeah, it does, and that just keeps coming up over and over and over again, is these events and the timelines are like paralleling, and the signs of the new age is really coming in, especially when it comes to talking about our children who are born with the second sight. And when I was young, I had it, and then life happened and I lost it. But as I get older and more mature, I know exactly that. Oh, thank you, Miss Agneta. Agneta Love Horses, thank you for your universal work. Awesome. You're awesome. Thank you for your support so much. We appreciate you. And then reigniting your second sight. But it is a lot of work. It's a lot of internal work, because as you go through life, you get all these traumas and it throws you off your path just a little bit. And after a while, that little bit turns into a lot. So, it has to do with realigning, soul realignment, which is always a really beautiful thing to do. But yeah, the kids that are born now have it, and I think they have for a while, and it's going to get nothing but stronger.
So we've shown in the past too how the universe, when we look at the stars, each star is connected in this neural network. It's just like a brain. So we're living in the mind of God ultimately. It's a pretty wild thought, but it's all connected. And again, the stars are not affected by the area that we're in. And, what are they doing? Well, they're spraying the skies with stuff because the sun is giving us direct knowledge in the form of light. Light is knowledge. It's information, so it's information, and the sun is a relay, through the central sun, which is, for us over in the Pleiades, Alcyon. But yet, ultimately, it's coming from God itself. It's coming from Source itself. This is the place and time we're at right now is we're to awaken, to rekindle the 12-strand DNA, and to become who we are. And some have said and wondered, are we perhaps what's considered to be the fallen angels, fallen in density? Because in reality, our consciousness, the higher self, resides on a much higher level of consciousness. And many have called us earth angels as well. And so we're going to head back into a more angelic state of being, a more divine state of being, more in contact with Source and living out the life that Source would intend for us, which is one of peace, brotherhood, love, tranquility, and exploration, because it's supposed to be fun. Life is supposed to be fun. Life is, again, every single one of us is a divine spark of Source, and we are Source exploring its own creation. So the whole idea too of the fact that perhaps if we look at the Sumerian stories and they say they created man, the true us, the higher self, they didn't create us. No Anunnaki created us. The Draco didn't create us, because we are Source just like any of the other beings out here. So they might have tinkered with the bodies. They might have manipulated the bodies and created new species. But the spirit's eternal. And it comes from above. It comes down from above. Life comes down from above, not up from below. And so, that's like with science thinking that consciousness is the product of chemical reactions and electric signals. It's not the case. Consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is the ultimate reality. It's what is. This is just a vehicle for us in this point in time. So I'll have these PDFs for you guys that want to get into this in more depth as far as the galactic superwave theory. And, one thing we haven't talked about was looking into the Theosophical Society and their works as well. Peter Dunev, again, he was born, I think, very close to the time when some of these other amazing minds were born. When you look at it, there's like waves of souls that come in. Yeah, Tesla, we've talked about Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and Ledbetter and the founders of the Golden Dawn, for instance. So many of these people that started to blend Eastern and Western mysticism and start to see maybe we are all talking about the same stuff. We're just using a little bit different flavors and seasonings. Just like we could take rice and we could take some veggies and we could turn it into a wonderful Italian meal. We could turn it into a wonderful Chinese meal or a wonderful Indian meal. It's all made out of the same ingredients, but it has a very different flavor to it. But ultimately, it's all going to be nourishment.
That's right.
And yummy.
Yes, absolutely.
So the idea of root races and that we're coming to a new root race, and we are changing. We are definitely changing. So, Homo sapiens sapiens, that might change. And so what comes next? Well, it's going to be a much more powerful being, much more fully functioning. And we are evolving. We're changing. And so, there's many different ideas on this. But, coming from The Secret Doctrine, which is a Blavatsky book, and I wonder how many of you guys out there have studied Blavatsky. Really interesting stuff. And so much stuff that Cindy hasn't read, but yet when she channels it, it goes along with a lot of these great minds and what they have seen. So according to The Secret Doctrine, once the earth was ready to hold human life, two groups of celestial beings were called upon to assist in the creation of man. The Lords of the Moon and the Lords of the Flame, or, we could look at it as the Elohim as well. And, I think there's a lot of things that have been just so obscured, twisted, hidden, distorted. That's why when we just, say look at the Bible in and of itself, there's a lot of great truths in there. There's a lot of esoteric symbolism in there. But if we read it in a purely literal fundamentalist way, we're missing so much of it, and we just, like when we're talking about the numerology of 12. Well, 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles, and, there's people that will just take it as a literal 12 and not understand the significance of the number 12 and getting into, astrology as well, the 12 signs. We have 12 months. It goes on and 12 hours. Yeah. It just goes on and on. The symbolism, the 7 churches, representing the 7 chakras. And we're going to touch on a teeny bit more of that as well. So the Elohim, I think that what we have going on is a distortion, because the true Elohim are very, very powerful, benevolent beings. Not what we're seeing with Enlil, Enki, and these other entities at all.
No, they don't play nice. They're more like the hijackers, and they're the ones who are kind of directing things the way that they need them to go for their own agenda. And I feel like our brains were given certain filters to filter out information that would otherwise benefit us had we not been tinkered with. That's just my belief. But, as I learn more and more and understand more and more, it makes sense. Our brains there's filters on them, and that makes it not a very even playing ground.
In the future on this channel coming up, I'm going to go a lot more in depth and really even just simply taking like one chapter of a book and going into it in depth. Like a lot of the works of Yogananda is just amazing. So again, he was talking in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, which many of you may recognize, that basically the etheric body is there's a blueprint, the etheric template from which the physical body takes its form. And we have the astral body as well. And all this is in QiGong. It's all in Taoist philosophy, as well as very well known throughout Vedic philosophy. And, there's just so many books to go deep into Hindu holy books. And again, I feel like those are some of the best keys to the knowledge that's been lost. And a lot of that teaching, if not all of it, comes from the stars, or from also the collective consciousness of very, very advanced beings. And, It's just fascinating to see this. So the first people were non-physical. And when we look at things like nature spirits, elemental beings, they're not really physical. We could sometimes get glimpses of light, the corner of our eye and stuff, or if we have our second sight developed, we could see them take sometimes very curious forms, such as half cat, half elf, speaking of one that we see. It's really interesting. And then we have the fall as we become more physical. And again, like when we're looking at Lemuria, I feel like Lemuria was more of a 5D existence, a higher existence. And then even though we got more technologically advanced as we moved into the Atlantean period, we started to lose the spiritual side of things, as perhaps that's when we were entering into this dark zone. And it started to pull us down. These entities, these dark entities in this zone that perhaps destroyed planets like we see in Star Wars with killer technology and killing millions of living beings, billions of living beings in one shot with horrible advanced technology, and getting others to assimilate into their Borg. Well, these beings started to get a hold of humanity that was here developing and slowly corrupt them, and also slowly pulling them down, down, down into a lower vibe and a heavier density. And now that we're going to be leaving that zone, we're going to be starting to lift up, and we're already lifting up. I am buzzing and tingling 24/7, 365. There's hardly ever a time when I'm not constantly feeling my energy body. And it's the new norm, and it'll be the new norm for, I think, the majority of people. I mean, everybody that's going to go and ascend. So this gets into more details about that. And it's interesting. It's an interesting read. So scripturally, I love this one too. Now I declare to you, brothers, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, nor does the perishable inherit the imperishable. Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in an instant, twinkling of an eye at the last trumpet. And, O death, where is your sting now? Because, it's going to be a very, very different reality. And John 14:12, I assure you, the one who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and he will do even greater works than these, because I'm going to the Father. So when Jesus said, I and the Father are one, he's referring to that he's self-realized. He understands that source is in him. And we could view him as an ascended master. You could view him as a true son of God. But that doesn't mean that you cannot be a son of God, or I, or anybody else, or a daughter of God. We have to recognize the divinity that lies within. And, how could we, if he was the only one, do things even greater than he did? That would be a conundrum that couldn't be solved. How could we? And he's saying you will do things again. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, the whole body shall be full of light. That's Matthew 6:22. And it's a direct reference to opening up the pineal gland. Santos Bonacci, has done a lot talking about this and about, exactly where the cerebral spinal fluid, its role in this process is as well. And I've done craniosacral therapy on probably thousands of people, over the years. And it's amazingly powerful, especially when it's directed by the energy work. It can do so much to start to open up our energy centers, get the kundalini to flow, and then start to build that Merkaba, where we are getting our wings. And that's exactly what is happening. And so when we look deeper, how about with Jacob wrestling with the Lord? Was he really wrestling with the Lord? In what way? Was it a spiritual wrestling? And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. Peniel, right? For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Peniel, the eye of Ra. The pineal gland, that's the pineal gland right there in the brain. It's right there if we look at it. So we just have to look a little bit deeper and not just look at things just at surface value. So Jacob, after wrestling with the angel of the Lord at Peniel, said, I have seen God face to face. And how do we see God? Well, it's when we open up the pineal gland. After that experience, his life was transformed. And that's what's truly meant by being born again as well. Again, it's just like Jesus was talking to John, and John said, I baptize with water, but you baptize with the Holy Spirit. So Christ could transfer that Holy Spirit, and Hindu yogis transfer the Holy Spirit. And when a yogi blesses you and charges you and sends his energy into you, it can awaken the Kundalini experience, awaken the pineal gland. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of cases of that. It's just part of the tradition. So that is being born with spirit. And it causes a change in us. So his name goes from Jacob to Israel. And, that's just part of looking a little bit deeper. And then at Pentecost, why do they all have flames on their head? Well, it's because the crown chakras are open and their Kundalini, which is, again, it's serpent power, it's fiery power. And it feels like a fire that goes up your spine. The fire's burning at the top. They're just like candles with a wick burning. So that's the Holy Spirit upon them. It's that their Kundalini is awakened and they are forever changed.
Yeah, and there's a lot to that with the Kundalini. What I think is going on with the new rays that we have, I think our Kundalinis are being triggered and we are awakening as a collective. Everybody at their own pace, of course, but it can cause, like, if you already have problems, maybe it could cause more inner turmoil because your body's trying to balance itself out. It's trying to make everything right in your brain. So, like for me, for example, I have traumas, I have issues, and when your Kundalini is awakened, you still have those traumas, those issues, but you better deal with it. You can't get out of not dealing with it. It's just not going to happen. It just sort of amplifies everything, but it can also be a really beautiful experience too. But in the end, it's always worth it to go within and start working on yourself.
Most definitely. And we've talked about Sri Yukteswar before, and this is the guru of Yogananda. And he talked all about the yugas, and I've done a video on his book before as well. And isn't it interesting that when we look at these time periods, they're in 12,000 year intervals. Again, going along with, remember what we were talking about with the Galactic Superwave, right? And the Galactic Superwave, again, we're talking about what time period? 12,000 to 16,000 year intervals. So, a lot of these things, they just go together so perfectly when we start looking and getting the clues from all around the world. And again, having the courage to really look all around the world and compare and then find that which is the underlying truth. And again, the study of fundamental consciousness entering the mainstream. Consciousness is what's fundamental. Consciousness gives rise to life in so many different forms. Because these vehicles are all about just simply exploring creation. So ultimately we're eternal, and there's really nothing to fear.
Right, but we all have to get there. However we get there, the whole point is you get there. Some people might take paths that look a little bit, what you might want to call shady, a little bit strange, a little bit different. But the whole point is that you get there. It doesn't really matter how.
As long as it's done with love. Yes. That's the key.
As best you can.
Yeah, love and compassion.
Yeah, love and compassion.
That's what needs to be cultivated. And letting go of our fears, which is difficult because it can be very difficult because of the deep societal conditioning and the horrible techniques that have been done to humanity throughout the ages. just like right now, because as we're blossoming, they're planning on creating a third world war. And they've already told us about this. You're going back to 1871. So we must be strong, and we must help others as well. Guys, thank you so much for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. As always, we love you guys.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.